Hello and a very warm welcome to Front Page, only on the AIM Network, India's definitive media organization and voice on everything AI and technology. It's truly a pleasure to have you all with us. But before we get into the headlines and what lies ahead, this is something which is very important and I'm sure you look forward to it once I tell you. Cypher, yes, India's biggest AI summit and expo is back in its 10th edition, and this time it makes it bigger than ever. It shall take place in October of this year at KTPO, Bengaluru. And of course, if you're very, very serious about your AI and tech, which I know you are, then well, you can go ahead and also get hold of the early bird passes. The link is in the description for the same. And I'm pretty sure once you've done that, we will see each other at Cypher 2026. And now, of course, here are the headlines. Microsoft sets a 2029 deadline to deploy a scalable quantum computer powered by its new Majorana 2 chip, leveraging agentic AI and material upgrades to dramatically extend qubit lifetimes. Indian semiconductor startups raised $92 million in early 2026, quadrupling 2025's total, as government DLI schemes help local design talent transition from prototyping into commercial production and global intellectual property ownership. Microsoft's new MAI Image 2.5 model debuted behind GPT Image 2 on Arena AI leaderboards at Build 2026, showcasing powerful marketing and film editing features as part of a push for OpenAI independence. Indian startup AnduraX targets a 2028 runway landing for orbital payloads with its Ares Spaceplane, launching a critical June drop test to solve the microgravity manufacturing return constraint. Sandeep Bhambure of Veeam Software will be outlining how India's AI growth intensifies data governance and DPDP compliance challenges, highlighting Veeam's new AI-driven cyber resilience platform and the Bharat Cyber Suraksha skilling initiative. Microsoft has just put a date on quantum computing. The date is 2029. That's when Microsoft says it expects to deliver a scalable quantum computer powered by its new Majorana 2 chip. And if that sounds familiar, there's a reason. Quantum computing has spent decades living in the future. Every few years, a company announces a breakthrough. Every few years, investors, researchers, and engineers ask the same very question. Show me the machine. This week, Microsoft is trying to answer that very question. Microsoft has unveiled Majorana 2, the next generation of its quantum processor built around what it calls topological qubits. Now, for nearly 2 decades, Microsoft has pursued a very different path from rivals like IBM and Google. While much of the industry focused on improving fragile qubits and correcting errors after they occur, Microsoft made it a much riskier bet. Build qubits that are inherently more stable from the beginning. That idea actually resides at the heart of the company's Majorana program. And according to Microsoft, Majorana 2 is its strongest evidence yet that the approach is working. One of the biggest changes is in the materials themselves. Microsoft has replaced aluminum with lead as the superconducting material inside the chip. The processor also uses a semiconductor stack built from indium arsenide and indium arsenide antimonide. Those changes may sound highly technical, yeah, but the objective is quite plain: make quantum information harder to disturb. Microsoft says the new design creates a significantly more stable topological state and more than, doubles the topological protection gap compared to Majorana 1. The most important figure, actually, in Microsoft's announcement isn't the number of qubits itself. It's actually how long they stay alive. So, according to Microsoft, Majorana 1 achieved qubit lifetimes ranging from roughly 1 to 12 milliseconds. Majorana 2 reportedly pushes that number beyond 20 seconds on average, with some measurements exceeding 1 minute. That is, of course, a substantial jump. Longer lived qubits allow more computations to happen before errors begin to accumulate. And error correction remains the biggest obstacle standing between today's quantum experiments and tomorrow's useful quantum computers. So what is Microsoft doing? Microsoft is essentially saying it has made meaningful progress on that very problem. Microsoft continues to participate in DARPA's quantum computing programs, where companies are evaluated on their ability to move toward utility-scale, fault-tolerant quantum systems. The company's latest roadmap now targets a scalable machine by 2029, which is, of course, quite an aggressive timeline, especially in a field known for optimistic forecasts and delayed breakthroughs, which is why many researchers remain fairly cautious. The quantum industry has seen plenty of announcements over the years. Now, what everyone wants now is repeatable, independently validated progress. Microsoft says agentic AI tools played a growing role in the development of the chip and the broader research process. The challenge facing Microsoft's quantum team wasn't so much about a shortage of data. It was actually the opposite. Nearly 2 decades of research spread across different disciplines, countries, fabrication processes, experiments, and measurement systems. So according to Microsoft, AI systems help researchers navigate that very complexity. The company also says AI was used to identify material combinations worth testing, organize knowledge across teams, automate difficult measurement processes, and detect issues that might otherwise go unnoticed. One example comes to mind, which involved AI agents, which was automatically exploring voltage configurations and measurement conditions. That would be a very difficult task for a human researcher to evaluate manually. And here, of course, is the front page take. The question now isn't whether quantum computing remains important. The question is whether Microsoft's approach finally works outside the laboratory. Because if Majorana 2 delivers on even part of what Microsoft is promising, the conversation definitely changes. Quantum computing, as we know, stops then being a science experiment. It tends to then grow and graduate into an engineering challenge. And engineering challenges have a habit of moving much faster than people expect. Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. The Indian semiconductor startups have raised $92 million across 12 funding deals in the first 5 months of 2026. It is nearly 4 times the amount raised in all of last year. Investors, policymakers, and founders bet on India's ambition to build a domestic chip industry. Indian engineers have traditionally powered products used by billions. But there was always one problem. The intellectual property wasn't Indian. The companies, the chips, none of it. That may finally be starting to change, which is wonderful. In just the first 5 months of 2026, Indian semiconductor startups have raised over $92 million, and many of them are moving beyond just prototypes. They are getting into production. Now, for decades, India's role in the semiconductor industry was quite clear. We supplied talent, not the companies. India became home to one of the world's largest semiconductor design workforces. Today, roughly 20% of the world's chip design engineers work in India. Several Indians work for global corporations. Yet, only a few Indian startups were building semiconductor products of their own, which is a shame. That is, of course, now beginning to change. Now, for me to put that in perspective for you, the sector raised only $25 million across 6 deals in 2025, right? It's a sign that investors are becoming more certain that India's semiconductor ambitions now can move from policy documents to actual products. And more importantly, these startups are no longer stuck at the prototype stage. Companies such as Netra Semi, Mindgrove Technologies, and Agnit Semiconductors are now moving towards customer pilots and commercial production. But the point is, what is driving the momentum? That is a question we need to ask and answer. Now, part of the answer lies with government policy. India's Design-Linked Incentive, or DLI scheme, was created to support chip design startups. It reduces the risk of building semiconductor companies. The broader Semicon India program is also accelerating ecosystem growth. Billions of dollars are being invested across the semiconductor value chain. But I think policy alone cannot build an industry. However, a bigger shift is also being noticed. Founders are beginning to believe they can build globally relevant semiconductor enterprises from India itself. Now, these startups are attempting to own a larger piece of that value chain. These semiconductors actually reside at the heart of the modern economy. Every smartphone, as we know, laptop, electric vehicle, AI server for that matter, defense systems, yes, depend on such chips. And that's why countries around the world are investing heavily in semiconductor ecosystem. Now for India, this is more about technological competence than just a business. It already has significant strengths in semiconductor design markets. It employs around 125,000 chip design professionals. The challenge now is actually converting that design talent into product companies. And here, of course, is the front page take. Now, for years, India's semiconductor story was about engineers working for global companies. We've established that. Today, a new chapter is starting to emerge. One where Indian startups are trying to build their own intellectual property, their own products, and eventually their own global semiconductor businesses. $92 million may be a small number compared to the billions which are flowing into Silicon Valley or, for that matter, Taiwan. But for India's chip ecosystem, it could signal something far more important, a milestone. Not an economic one, but perhaps a sign of things to come. Please do let us know what are your thoughts on this fabulous development in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM. Microsoft's MAI Image 2.5 debuted on Arena AI's leaderboard in second place. A major disruption in the AI image model landscape. But before we, of course, deep dive into this one, I would request you, please, to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you so much for doing that. Now, of course, let's continue with what happened. The new MAI Image 2.5 was part of a larger rollout by Microsoft made during the Build 2026 event, which released another 6 models along with it, spanning coding, image generation, transcription, voice, and their first ever reasoning model, MAI Thinking 1, all a part of their effort to reduce dependency on OpenAI and Anthropic. However, the MAI Image 2.5 rollout is interesting for more reasons than just one. GPT Image 2 has been a clear winner in almost every aspect. Let me, of course, list them down for you. Text rendering, instruction following, artistic range, accessibility. But Microsoft's MAI Image 2.5 is a disruptor. It has debuted at second place in image editing leaderboard on arena.ai and third place in the text-to-image leaderboard, bringing in new capabilities like, let's say, preserving recognizable faces across edits, controlling the scene and style, generating logos, typography, and responsive text edits from natural cues, a potential to become a pillar in the marketing space. Now, while MAI Image 2.5 has made a bold introduction, it still lags behind its inability to handle conflicting and complex prompts, anatomical oddities while producing photorealistic human beings. These could be challenges for the new model. It may have actually carved too narrow a niche by becoming friendly toward brand and product marketing generation. GPT Image 2 continues to be the leader in the image generation space. Fair. As we, of course, had mentioned before, its versatility is notable and therefore far more desirable. Time, of course, will only tell whether newer models by Microsoft can make any headway on surpassing OpenAI. And here, of course, is the front page take. The AI image model space is maturing, yes. The question is, how will it affect the arts? Will films, anime, television shows employ AI in editing within the shot? MAI Image 2.5 is capable of de-aging, color grading, and other methods of full-frame restyling. A tedious yet important job in filmmaking, let's not forget. Now, another question. Can it be fully automated? What do you think? That one is for you. Please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.
AI prototypes are everywhere, but very few professionals know how to deploy AI where businesses actually operate. Introducing the Certified Forward Deployed AI Specialist by Adasi, a certification designed for the new generation of AI professionals who can bridge technology, deployment, operations, and business execution in real-world enterprise environments. Because modern AI success is no longer just building models. It's about making AI work inside production systems, customer workflows, and enterprise operations. The future belongs to engineers who can take AI from demo to deployment. This certification is ideal for AI engineers, solutions architects, technical consultants, Gen AI practitioners, developers who want to move beyond experimentation and deploy AI systems that create measurable business impact. The future of AI belongs to professionals who can take intelligence from concept to real-world execution.
There are a lot of models available on Amazon. You can use any model. For this particular workshop, I'll go with Llama 3. It's the simplest, easiest, and in terms of cost, no problem. But yes, if you are an organization, you want to go and work, you can use Anthropic's Claude model. You can use any of these models. So this is the 2ml file. And what you need, all of you, is you can see there is a Docker file also created. There is a Py project created. There is requirement, and this is the environment. So this is the app where you have a Py cache. So this is your cache. Init.py will not have anything, that is for initialization. This is your actual agent script. And then here you have got a README, which you can use automatically running in Docker, and these things come automatically.
You can click on data store. You can click on the tool name. So this is tool 1. It's a data store. You can give the description. Now I'm going with the lowest score in terms of grounding. So we have low confidence that the response is grounded.
Every payload that goes to space today faces the same problem on the way back. It falls, not lands, falls at thousands of kilometers an hour, burning through the atmosphere, crashing into the ocean under parachutes retrieved by boats. That is the state of the art for payload return in 2026. In space, pharmaceutical manufacturing has already produced drug crystals with 1,000 times greater purity than anything achievable on Earth. The reason we do not manufacture drugs in space at scale is quite simple. There is no reliable, affordable way to bring the product back. AnduraX is building a space plane that lands on a runway. So in the last week of May, they've done a drop test vehicle from 25,000 meters, and that has been done successfully, by the way. Ares is designed to carry 100 kilograms of payload to orbit and return it through the low G re-entry and a conventional runway landing, targeting the first re-entry mission by 2028. Now, we have two wonderful people joining us and who are going to be sharing this journey and a lot more on Front Page. First, I would like to introduce Shri Supranya, who is the co-founder and CEO of AnduraX. And then, of course, alongside her is Ankit Anand, who is the founding partner at Riceberg Ventures and co-founder of Kick Sky Space Lab. Welcome to the both of you to Front Page for doing something which is remarkably wonderful. How are you doing?
Doing great, thanks.
We're doing great. Pleasure. Happy to be part of this. Thank you for having us.
Truly, truly happy having you with us. Ankit, how are you doing? You look like a happier investor now that you have had a successful drop test.
Yes, of course, that's definitely what we look for, right? Especially as a deep tech investor, right? The financial metric come very, very late stage of whenever we invest in.
Correct.
So we measure success by how the product is progressing, what are the technical milestones the portfolio is hitting. And this is definitely a great head start,
Fabulous. Fabulous to hear that. Shri, I need to ask you this. Contextualize for me the motivation behind naming the company AnduraX. Does it have anything to do with the SpaceX aspect? Are you going head on with SpaceX, with this tech? What has inspired this? Because truly, to be honest, I want to understand what's going on.
Sure, there's definitely an inspiration from SpaceX too. But more than that, the name Andura is derived from endurance, the kind of quality we would have to embark on such a journey. And then expedition literally means journey. That's where Andura Expedition shortened to be AnduraX. Also, it has the full form that stands Advancing National Defense, Unifying
Very
Realms
nice.
Along Expeditions.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And of course, the fact that you're doing something which SpaceX is actually not doing. You want to probably elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So SpaceX has been revolutionary in optimizing the logistics from Earth to space. Everything we have today there, it has made it the complete logistics economical. What we are looking at is now the access to space has become easier. How can we utilize this environment to benefit the humanity on Earth? That is where we're building platforms where we can use space for manufacturing and bring it back to Earth safely.
Fabulous. So you're doing a one-up, maybe, in a way. And the fact that they started with the same kind of a question, and today they are at a $350 billion valuation. AnduraX is doing things successfully. What do you have to say on that?
1.7 trillion now.
Fair enough, Ankit. I knew you're the numbers man. Who's going to come in?
So...
Right. Fair enough. But of course, just the start of the journey. So it's a nice place to start, no?
Absolutely. This is where it's all headed to now.
Nice.
As I'm saying, all the industries are looking at space as the extension, as the area of expansion to develop more and more research and experimentation in a better conducive environment. Now,
Right.
the future is all about utilizing space for the manufacturing, eventually taking the human space flight, making microgravity hubs, and then solving the complete loop of logistics there.
I'm, of course, going to get into a way deeper conversation. I want to start with the both of you. The first thought that I want to talk to you about is this, which is the vehicle is carried to 25,000 meters by a high altitude balloon before release, right?
Yes.
So what does ADM-01 actually validate, and what does failure on this test tell you that success cannot? This one goes to you first, Shri, and then I would like Ankit's reaction on the same.
Sure. So before that, I'll start with why it is important and what is the critical aspect it's validating there. When you're talking about re-entry vehicles, guidance, navigation, and control system becomes the backbone of it, navigating the vehicle autonomously back to Earth and ensuring it lands at a precise location. And that is what we are targeting to achieve by the end of this year with precision, showcasing the precision landing capability. Now, ADM stands for Ares Drop Mission 1. It's the first test where we drop the vehicle from this near stratospheric altitudes and tested and validated our complete guidance navigation system, gathering all the data that will fine-tune our systems to be capable of precision landing.
Wonderful. Ankit, what was your reaction when the test took place successfully? What was that like for you?
No, it's basically for us, as I said, normally what we look into, because financial metrics are so difficult to track in any of these companies, because that they don't exist, right? So we normally break down any company that we invest in within Riceberg, or like when we are guiding them through Kickstarter Accelerator also, we help them building this milestone, a tangible milestone that you can claim that you made a progress, right? Let's say first time we invested in. When you move on, they're going to raising money from another investor, and it follows on multiple rounds, right? If you were a classical company, in that case, you will be fine just saying that, okay, you invested at like X ARR and now I'm at Y ARR. And because that reason, you can, show the growth. But when it comes to company of this kind, you need to show the technical growth and has to be tangible, a validation, and not too distracting, should be building towards the final journey that we are talking about. So if you look from that point of view, this is like, how do you test if this is Spaceplane work? Firstly, you need to make sure that you are able to communicate, right? So the first thing is that they are testing the guidance and navigation. And that's what we like about it. That is very precise, very tangible, right? But it doesn't cost too much money right away. Because also second part is that is, a lot of time people just go out and do like a big test, and before they don't talk anything or do anything. And things can fail, right? Because it's a long journey. So if you can break down the entire approach in a modular way and grow from there, it's best. And I'm very, very glad the team took this approach and actually they did it successfully. So that's, of course, our reaction is always happy, right? So
fabulous. She also has a big smile. Ankit, a little more, I want to speak with you on this. Kicksky Space Lab, which is India's first VC-backed space accelerator, 2 cohorts, 11 startups, right? Now, what did you see as far as AnduraX is concerned that made it the right bet for you when probably Sri approached you? And does the Indian space startup ecosystem look like today compared to, let's say, when Kicksky had just started operations?
No, of course, the improvement is quite tremendous. I'll ask the last question first, right?
Sure.
So the improvement is Space Tech startup ecosystem, because when we started, the core logic was like, Rafael and I were sitting in a cafe in Zurich. Rafael is a co-founder, runs another fund called E2MC Venture. And we had just co-invested in an Indian company called Manaswi Space to start with, right? So that's how the journey started. And we were discussing that, hey, there are some good talent coming out from India, but still this entire thing is not very structured, right? And we don't know where to find, because 1 or 2 are like super outlier, but the others we are not able to really pinpoint where to and how to locate. So the idea was to put up an ecosystem behind that can give you a repeatable access to the founders and to support them in a very structured way, what a Space Tech accelerator, a Space Tech ecosystem need, which cannot be done by a classical accelerator, and makes sense, right? It's not their job as well, right? So what we look for as a space investor, if we prepare them towards that, that would be great, right? So that was the vision we started with. And fast forward today, honestly, like, sometimes we even debate, do we even need a Kicksky still in India, right? Because the ecosystem already is starting to mature very much, that there are already a startup coming, which, of course, the one has been part of Kicksky, but also from outside are pretty mature, because, you need a couple of role models to be able to really establish. Correct. Now, there are some good role models in the space industry in India. So people are able to do that, right? So that's the second part of the question. The thing has improved quite a lot, which we are very glad about, because that was that's how we can count as a success, right? If we have to stop doing what we started to do, that means we achieved the objective, right? So that's the but we are still continuing. But I'm just saying that that's like an internal debate, and which is fun thing, a good problem to be having going on. Coming back to the previous question on the AnduraX side, right? What we look for primarily, both of us as in Kicksky, like, both funds involved, we are a global fund. We invest across the globe. So whenever we are investing from a fund point of view, even in an Indian company, our goal is very clear that we are not looking, and we do space tech, but we do deep tech across, right? We look for breakthrough technology across other sectors as well. So our benchmark is very clear, because when we get a startup coming from anywhere in the world, we get deal flow all the way from Sydney to San Francisco, right? We normally don't benchmark that this is the company who is one of the best in India that we found is doing it, because we are not limited to invest just in India. Fair enough. We look for a company which can actually compete through its technology on a global scale.
Fair enough.
That's the main part. And in a space, you have to do that, irrespective of your fund or structure or something, because space is a global market by default, right? That's the whole thesis of that entire thing. So for that reason, one thing that we always try to optimize for the people who are going for really hard problems. Because global market is very tough, right? And if you're doing something that other people have already done, immediately,
Correct.
just because you are cheap coming from India doesn't have immediate advantage in space, because space pays more for reliability, because a loss of a rocket or a mission in a space costs several millions of dollars.
Oh, yes.
So even if you're like 20-30% cheaper, nobody cares. They will rather pay a double of a price, but they will pay for reliability that this thing works, or you do something that nobody else ever have done. Right?
Makes sense.
So of course, reliability will come over the time, but you have to start with a problem, tackling a very hard problem that other people would not have achieved, right? And that's what we liked about AnduraX, right? Because the thing is that, of course, upmass, like the mid layer in the space where people are using the data to bring things down, data to come back to Earth. That thing is happening, and a lot of good innovation has been done in that. But still, re-entry remains one of the biggest challenge of this.
Oh, yes.
Right. We have made one investment also in AnduraX, which is actually building the rocket, like the launch vehicles, and they are also fully usable launch vehicle, right? So the re-entry, we know that is a very big technical challenge that need to be cracked and need to be cracked in multiple directions. What we look for about AnduraX, that they were going after something which is really hard, but if you actually solve it, it actually unlocks a huge potential in the market, and that's the core why we liked about it. And of course, the team was very enthusiastic. So always, in this earliest stage, you get on the team, right? You're like,
nice.
Okay, like these are unstoppable people.
And that
so
always
you
helps.
got something about it, right?
Yeah,
so
that always helps.
They keep moving irrespective you back them or not, doesn't matter, right? So it's not about did we back them, then they moved. No, doesn't matter. They would have done the same
Fair
even
enough.
if we would not, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that gives the motivation.
That's wonderful. Shri, actually, I would like to understand from you now, every current payload return system ends in the ocean. As Ankit mentioned, it is one of the most difficult issues that is still, well, one is trying to find a solution. AnduraX is very close to finding a solution. What makes a runway landing for, let's say, orbital payloads technically harder than, let's say, a rocket booster recovery? And what does, let's say, getting it right unlock for all of us?
Okay. So I'll start with the biggest challenge there with the capsules or with the ocean landing. Mainly comes once it lands in ocean, you will have to involve a lot of maritime operations for the recovery, and then it also adds payload additional time for the recovery of payload and getting it to the lab, where time sensitivity is of criticality because you'll have to keep supplying the required power to the payload. Where the moment you get it in a runway landing, it becomes easier and quicker to recover the payload. Within like half an hour to 1 hour, the payload can be handed over back to the customers and immediate experimentation can begin. That is one of the biggest advantages there. Now, another aspect of this landing is again rolls back into the precision landing capability I was talking about. In ocean, the main reason capsules also go for ocean splashdown is that you will have to leave out like an X kilometer radius zone, because you do not know exactly where it lands in that zone. Imagine having to leave out that much of area for every landing down in the future when this logistics becomes a routine thing. That won't be feasible. That is where this precision landing capability, eventually leading to runway landing capacity, comes into place, where it increases the cadence of the launch, increases the cadence of the vehicle. Adding to that, when you do not have the issues of this ocean recovery, it makes the vehicle more reusable than refurbishable, because it won't be prone to any kind of saltwater contamination there.
Fair enough.
Over to that, the kind of vehicle we are building is a dual-use vehicle. For defense operations, for the defense applications, runway landing becomes one of the most critical aspects. And that is where the spaceplane architecture also shines.
Tell me this, Ankit mentioned right earlier, Shri, I'm asking you this. It was quite interesting. Ankit said something which I thought stood out for me, that he found it fascinating that you guys were solving a very difficult problem, right? Now you know, Shri, that when you were approaching this problem, it is a daunting task. You still did not get deterred, so what's your motivation? Why? Because let's face it, a lot of people would just freak out and say, okay, it's too difficult to solve, don't want to touch it.
So this technology is actually nothing new. We have had it decades ago as space shuttle, where we were operating, returning like a space plane and completely landing on runway. But there were operational challenges that discontinued the space shuttle, and from there, the technology itself has advanced in each individual domain. Technology itself has advanced enough to make it possible now. And more than that, the impact of it. The impact, once you look into it, it drives you to overcome any challenge that would
Fair enough.
take in the journey to make it. When we talk about accelerating cancer research, the moment you
Fabulous.
experiment in space, can that be quantified? Can the impact of
True.
it is huge. So whatever challenges along the way, we need it. This accelerates the complete pharmaceutical industry. This accelerates the life of humanity on Earth. And that is what motivated us to do it no matter what.
Wonderful. Ankit, goosebumps. Anyway, now I'm coming to you, which is this: India's space station targets its first module launch in 2028. Okay? So this is the same year AnduraX targets its first re-entry mission. Question I have for you is, Ankit, why does India need a private re-entry vehicle when ISRO exists? And what does private capability add that a government program cannot?
See, ISRO, I mean, ISRO has been all of our hero working
Yes.
in the entire space industry, right? So
Right.
definitely we appreciate everything that ISRO does. But we need to understand that in general, the government institute, right, has a limitation on what they can do and what they can. Because after a point, once they start to do, and primarily, honestly speaking, what's the biggest of a challenge of breakthrough innovations, right? Apart from, of course, the first thing is that you need the talent, right, to be able to build something. But then you need the infrastructure or capital as such, right, which basically enables those breakthrough to happen, right? So like the talent, but talent needs resources to flourish, right? Now the talent is in place in India, which ISRO did the first best work to create the talent ecosystem in India. Now that we can pinpoint, if we want to find great space engineer, where to find, right? But now thing is, if we want this ecosystem to scale, the scale of ISRO will never be enough. One of the reasons why, and we can learn from, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can learn from the other ecosystem, right?
Sure.
Any R&D, any other country in the world, not only in space, actually flourishes not just because government puts a lot of money in there. Governments are putting a lot of money in those domains quite a lot, right? But apart from that, how much private funding goes in research in any country actually determine the success of the
right.
And basically, if you look at India, the private funding for research is almost zero, right? I don't even have to count the numbers, but they're almost zero, right? So the point is how private funding in research will increase, because if there are private initiatives, because at very max, a company like, let's say, any big conglomerate from India like Tata's and all, they can do a philanthropic initiative by putting a couple of $1 million to fund a chair in IIT Bombay. But that's it, right? But that scale never gonna be enough, right? But now imagine if you're doing in a private setting, a company like AnduraX or any other companies for that matter, right? You're able to raise hundreds of millions to be able to achieve a task, and that hundreds of million is more than, like, even if you look at the current current, let's say the largest funding raised in space in India, like two companies like Pixel and Skyroot, right? These people have raised more money than typical ISRO budget of a mission that would allow, right? Like say one mission, right? So what happens in private setting, that in an institution, you have the large budget for sure, but that large budget is distributed over different objectives and mission, which is built over a period of 20 years that you need to achieve, which is great, right? Because that adds the long-term patience in the research. But the private objectives are typically mission-driven. You want to achieve one objective, and you're basically using all hands on the deck just for that objective, and you're working on a shorter time, right? And these two need to dance together, right? It's not like one versus other. These two need to dance together to be able to achieve the final breakthrough that we want to achieve in the domain, right? So that's where, that's where when you say, for example, when building a space station, this cannot be a private, or it can be private initiative, but very difficult because you need to put a lot of governments together to be able to do that. There is a lot of bureaucracy and the geopolitics that goes behind it.
True.
But now every infrastructure that is needed to support that ecosystem, support that space station, need not to come all from ISRO, right? Because ISRO will be totally out of resources, out of budget if they want to do everything by themselves, right? But if we enable these ecosystems to be able to more and more private players to come and create. It will drive new capital resources, fresh talent, because there is also a cap of the amount of money that a talent can get paid in ISRO, right? Which you don't want to change it, but we can pay whatever we want in this. If we today want, like if imagine even AnduraX grows or any of our portfolio grows beyond certain point, and we have enough good capital, if we want to move a SpaceX engineer to back to India and say, hey, you move back to India and work for this company, we can do that. You can't do that in ISRO, right? Because those guys, I mean, even if how much emotional they will be for the mission, somebody won't leave $1 million worth of a job to come back and basically just work for like 2 lakh rupees a month, which is nothing wrong with that, right? But you need very different type of missionary people to be able to do that. But then the pool shrinks pretty much, right? There are limited set of people, limited set of talent, limited resources, which is great if you have infinite time, but unfortunately the world is moving too fast. We don't have infinite time and we keep losing very quickly, right? Like in a lot of domains. So that's the part where I think private initiative is pretty much needed. And it's not, it's like paramount. I mean, we can't move the country without it, right? This is the only way we can actually this is the missing piece that we can actually plug in the space ecosystem, which is already being plugged in. So that's the reason, right? So while the larger initiative of ISRO in long term will keep ensuring that country's large vision is guided in a right direction, but then to make the constituting element to make those mission work, we can expand that using these private initiatives through the startups.
Makes sense.
And through different funding mechanism that can be driven to eventually be a dominant player in that industry.
Makes sense. Shri, I want to kind of, follow up on what just Ankit mentioned. The fact that, the government policy changed. It was wonderful. The fact that, the private players could come in now as far as space is concerned. Ankit drew a parallel. I'll just give you a small little example as far as America is concerned in terms of the amount of money they fund and the private funding that they have, which I believe also alludes to the fact that when Ankit was mentioning about they need to dance together. But there is still an anomaly, and I want to understand from your side of where you're seeing this. Ankit, of course, is fully invested. No pun intended, Ankit. But the point is, but from your point of view, Shri, do you feel that we need a lot more people like Ankit coming into the space tech and the deep tech system as far as our country is concerned in terms of investments? Because I believe there is a yawning gap and a lot of people are still not, let's say, very inclined towards coming into this because it takes time, it requires patience, there's an accountability aspect, there is of course a lot of scare of what if everything just crashes down, we'll have to start from scratch. What is your thought on this?
So, in fact, our journey would give you the answer of how or what vital role such ecosystem plays and why we would require more people like, Ankit coming in on this. When we started, it was more of an idea with a passion to build this. For a lot of people, it even looked sci-fi. There is always a gap between a technical obsessed person wants to, with a passion, communicating it in a language investors to understand, communicating it in a language that creates the commercial value. That is exactly where both Ankit, Riceberg and Kicksky came into play, supporting as the bridge there. Now that is what started the initiative. And after that, Ankit was saying, the ecosystem has matured a lot. But even then remains, what's the key difference between you doing a research project versus building a company? The core technology itself is not enough. You would require the complete ecosystem. Yes, like finding the access to customer to understand their actual problem statements, government, regulatory bodies, everything comes into play. So all of this ecosystem is, it's not a one-person job. It's not even a single industry's job. So that is where organizations like the Kicksky and all come into play, supporting to build this ecosystem, having been it for long, having been working with multiple startups that do understand the do's and don'ts and give us like a smoother path along this journey.
Makes sense. As far as the pharmaceutical aspect is concerned, Shri, I want you to probably, elaborate on that, make us understand. Space manufactured pharmaceuticals have demonstrated 1,000 times greater crystal purity, as I had mentioned earlier also, as compared to the earth-based equivalents, right?
Yes.
Now, the barrier to commercial viability is the return, as was established. Now, if Ares solves the return problem, what industries change first, according to you, and how large is the commercial opportunity?
Okay. So among all the experiments you can do in space, top 200 remain pharmaceutical. The biggest aspect in it is something called protein crystallization. Just like you mentioned, the crystals are way purer
Correct.
and bigger in space. Accelerates all these neurogenerative diseases research and development. And then also comes semiconductor industries, optical fibers, and advanced materials. The
Wonderful.
foundation of it stands that in space there is no gravity, convection, and sedimentation. This removes the on pharmaceutical side, while it helps develop purer crystals. On semiconductor side, it removes impurities. It helps develop purer wafers and more heat-resistant semiconductor, which we would require to even build the AI data centers in space. Same applies to fiber optics and advanced materials. You can create alloys that are hard or even sometimes impossible to manufacture here on Earth. It extends to all these industries. And yes, the top remains the pharmaceutical.
So when you're talking about the cost impact, what kind of a commercial, let's say, opportunity gets created, for example?
Right. So we actually get this question a lot. How is it more economical
Correct.
to take it to space and manufacture rather than manufacturing here on Earth? So generally, it takes on an average 10 years for a drug from its inception to the
Correct.
market, and the long period is in the research with this protein crystallization.
True.
Now, when you rather do it in space, the moment you have access to the purer and clearer crystals, it reduces the complete simulation time itself and brings down this time period by 2 to 3 times. If you take into account the amount these industries spend per day, some industries put it out to be
Billions of
22,000.
dollars.
Yes. All of this, cutting down the time by half, reduces the complete cost of it. That is where, in comparison, when you rather send it to space manufacture and bring back with the logistics also becoming quite economical here, it creates a greater value there than anything what we are doing today.
Makes sense. And of course, now, Shri, to be honest, we have AI as well. Only recently, I remember Eli Lilly was approved by the FDA to use AI as far as their cancer research was concerned, which I thought was a great shot in the arm as far as the pharmaceutical industry goes. So what's your take on that? I mean, with AI assistance also coming in, reduction of that timeline, plus purity of crystallization coming into the picture. So looks like very exciting times ahead.
Absolutely, it would accelerate it by a lot. When you're talking about developing crystals in space, you're getting purer access, you're getting clearer understanding of the formulation. Now, for the analyzing time of it, with AI reducing there, we can really shrink down the time in any drug discovery process.
Fair.
I think that extends to semiconductors also in analyzing the
True.
papers that will manufacture. Yes. Absolutely agreed there.
Yeah. Ankit, what is your thought as far as the semiconductor aspect is concerned? We are pushing as a country in a big way. It requires, again, a huge amount of investment as far as we are concerned as a country. But, encouraging times though, that we have now almost about, let's say 4 years back, etc., we had no OSAT or plants. Today, we are looking at almost 4.
Yeah, so specifically when it comes to semiconductor, I'll put it in a broader category of basically what, if you look at the common thread between pharma, semiconductor, and everything that basically Steve mentioned as an industry to unlock in the microgravity is the sector what we talk about, right? But the common aspect is basically that you are basically trying to structure the molecules in the way you want. That's what we do it on Earth, right? To be able to create new, whether it's new drug, new material, whether it's semiconductor for alloys or whatever industry, right? But in principle, at the core of science of it, that you're basically structuring molecules, right? You're putting them together to make certain things happen, right? That's the goal. Now, when you do it on Earth, you are constrained by the gravity because this is not something you can get rid of, right? And then when you do it in space,
I hope we don't, because that would be a big problem.
Yeah, because then we have different problem to fight, right? If we don't have any problem to fight, then we are all done anyway. It doesn't matter. So that's like, I don't know if you read the book or saw this. So see the series called 3-Body Problem. So
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That problem.
Correct.
So coming back, so the thing is, not only the space and let's say AI and a space, all which is enabling the new success and where India should stand. So our thesis has been very clear when it comes to deep tech to India. That it's great that what we are doing currently is basically creating new infrastructure because that's the baseline, that's the foundation that you required. But if we want to excel, right, let's say today you want to establish a new manufacturing capability in semiconductor or fabs or something, right? And it takes like 5-10 years to get there, right? Like to have it completely operational, start creating an impact. The world is moving so fast that by the time you get there, then there is already a technology or already a method which is 10x better than that. And now you have to go back and start upgrading that. So if we try to play a catch-up game, it's very hard to compete in this world, unfortunately. I agree. Right? So only place which we as in India, we don't even have to look at role model outside. Even in India, when we succeeded to actually advance the technological landscape is basically when we think of leapfrogging, which was basically in fintech what we did, right? That we skipped the whole line of building the banking infrastructure on the internet and we directly went to mobile. And now it's one of the best in the world, right? It's the most convenient. I travel all around the world all the time and my UPI is the most convenient one to pay, right? Generally speaking. So the thing is, we have to look at the deep tech in India in the same way. So if you're looking to why we are establishing the fab, do these fab need to be the same built on the principle of 1980s where this industry started? Or shall we look where, because it will take us 10 years to build it anyway, right? And get it operating anyway. So by the time we get there, shall we not be ready for what is the main breakthrough of that time? So that we can easily plug that part. By the time infrastructure is ready, we plug that part in the play and immediately we are a world leader in that direction instead of basically trying to be thinking about that problem later, right? So of course, the bigger infrastructure investment cannot happen that way because it's a different risk, different amount of money that is needed. So the infrastructure should set as a foundation which is adaptable to any new technology. It should have the right line of sight of the new technology which is coming in, while the startups have the role to play that keep playing around and failing because all the capital we talked about. There is a capital in India. There is no problem of capital. Generally, investment happens in India. It's a problem of risk capital because there are tens of AnduraX. Sorry to say that to see, right? But tens of AnduraX is required to be able to. Probably one of them will be able to make it, right? And that's
the harsh truth.
That's a harsh truth. And even within AnduraX, they have to try 10 different methods for one of them to work. Right? So even it's not just that as a VC, we need to do a portfolio approach. When you're doing deep tech, also as a company, you have to do a portfolio approach of different methods and technology you can try and fail. Because unless we fail, we won't be able to really figure out something that has been done, right? So from that point of view, I'm seeing that infrastructure of both in pharma, also infrastructure is improving quite a lot actually. So far, we have been pretty much on generics, but a lot of bigger pharma companies are setting up R&D centers in India, like Roche has sent one. I mean, stationed in, my resident is in Zurich, in Switzerland, Basel. We are very close to pharma ecosystem, which is like Novartis and Roche come from. So these people are setting up the new, the R&D centers and manufacturing capabilities in India, which are coming advanced age. Now, if the startups in India keep enabling a new frontier, so by the time this part is ready, by the time we are ready, because we had to take a lot of failure, they have to do a lot of investment to be able to build the infrastructure. If that timing matches, then real breakthrough happen. And if you look, most of the bigger, breakthroughs breakthrough happens quite frequently with the smaller technology. But the biggest things that has happened in the world is electricity, internet, computer, or like AI now. These all came together because there were multiple directions were in play. It never happened because of one thing, right? Like basically AI improved because compute improved quite significantly over a period of time. I mean, AI has been out there since 1980s, right? And I mean, I personally am using AI, investing in, using in my, I'm a physicist, right? So using in my research since started research, right? Even so, AI was nothing special. But the whole Gen AI,
it just exploded, right, Ankit, for everyone. That
the general capability it could build, right? So the main explosion because the most general model which can be adapted everywhere, and that came through because, of course, the general model that was developed by, let's say, the frontier labs like OpenAIs of the world. But on the top of that, if NVIDIA would not have done the work in improving the compute, this was possible, right? Or so there are a lot, like even the market unlock, like, what basically Google established. Imagine if Google didn't exist, of this scale by now, the AI frontier wasn't possible because nobody knew how to work on a general information as a business model.
Absolutely.
The business model of a general information was built by Google in principle, right? That you can build multi-trillion dollar company by just providing people knowledge and information, right? This was never done before, right? I mean, earlier counterparts were yellow pages, right? Literally, right? Correct. So yellow pages, what Google did was like a big step change. Sure. So a lot of people played role in this AI to happen, right? Directly or indirectly, right? And same happens in every ecosystem. Like, today we can talk so confidently about in AnduraX because NASA opened the policy to start with. We have to give credit to them.
True.
Then SpaceX able to build a multi-trillion dollar company. Then people got confidence that, hey, there is possible to make investment in space. That's why capital started to flow in the space side, right?
True.
So that's the second part that is starting to happen. And there are a bunch of, like, the AnduraX requires so many other technologies, right? From propulsion to navigation and everything else has improved so tremendously over a period.
True.
What a space shuttle didn't have, right? And because that is coming together. So it's always we have to look from that part. And same goes for many, because, sorry, I took longer, but you ask about the semiconductor industry. Same, we have to look in the semiconductor industry as well.
I see your
because
point.
if we just manage to get exactly what world is today, by the time we build it, it will be too late. So we have to keep, and that's where the startup communities that do something, take the next level.
Absolutely, I agree with you. And Sri, I want to come to you with this point that Ankit just made a hell of a lot of sense, because he's talking about why is it that we are going ahead and emulating something. Let's not do that, right? What are your thoughts? Because I'll back it up with a number, and probably that's why Ankit is saying this. China's space tech investment reached $1.17 billion in 2025. India's was $83.1 million. I mean, that's a huge gap, correct? Now, given the fact that these are countries which have obviously the funding, one, two, they're a little ahead of the race, right? Three, we are starting, but we also want to compete or maybe lead the race. So you, as a very creative founder for doing something who loves actually taking on challenges, what is your thought? Let's learn from where they made their mistakes and try to actually leapfrog them. What is your thought?
So absolutely agreed. I'll start with the first point, where today we have to start building. So we have the infrastructure, what we will need once we reach the future. So as we talk about in-space manufacturing there, as we are scaling up exactly by 2028, as you said, the first module being operational by 2030, complete Bharati Antariksh station set there. Today is when we have to start building to match the pace and to be able to be the logistics platform or be the vehicle to supply cargo and back for their services. We can't start in 2030 and then take another 3 years for this logistics platform to be built. And on the second aspect, absolutely. So for years, we have been, frankly, a decade behind in terms of this space tech development compared to the other countries like USA and everything. But with the recent advancement, both in private segment and ISRO's, we have taken a stand in complete launch vehicle and satellite market. We don't want to follow the same trend again in the re-entry vehicles or whatever the future of space is. Now that we have the right ecosystem in place, as Ankit was saying, we have the right talent and everything. It is best that since we already know what is the future, we start building now and we put India on the pedestal. Why not one of the top 5 nations in something, but why not the first in the world in something? That is how we are looking at it.
But that would require, Shri, tell me this. Let's say we take AnduraX's case, right? Now, when you picked on the problem, what probably Ankit was talking about is the fact that you need to not reinvent the wheel. You don't need to do that. You need to kind of look at it from a very different sort of a lens. So, if you were to give me an example, if AnduraX has to be a market leader, right? How is it that you end up thinking, which probably nobody else is? Probably because that's going to, leapfrog us.
Yes, definitely. So here you would fundamentally have a lot of advantages being a company building from India. You take leverage of that aspect. First and foremost will be the economical factor. We are able to launch rockets and send probes to moon with a lower mission cost than any other country in the world because the economical factor there, we can build it at a cheaper rate here. That gives us the advantage of being the option for all other global manufacturers to opt us instead of any other alternatives, adding in turn the economical factor to them. And then comes various other factors like so a lot of technology is already available in fragments. It's about looking at in this way that you pick what is there. You the core integration will be your core, the IP. You look at how to utilize the existing technologies or whatever the research has happened since space shuttle to date to build what is needed, and that is the way we are working at it too. Although we have multiple subsystems that should be developed, propulsion, guidance, navigation, avionics, aerodynamics, everything, we take in what is already there, not everything from scratch. Utilize the be it ISRO, so be it NASA, so be it whatever industrial development already there, and add in our core IP like the guidance and navigation recent demonstration you have seen, bring it together to create the product the future needs.
Wonderful. I need to, of course, ask you this now. Sierra Space, Rocket Lab and Varda Space Industries are all building orbital return capability globally. Okay. Now, this is to the both of you. Where does India genuinely stand in this race? One, and is the 2028 timeline realistic or aspirational?
Okay, so I'll start. So
Please.
India has already been working on RLV TD mission earlier, and you would have seen the recent advancements with Gaganyaan 2. India is already in the race for the re-entry vehicle systems, be it capsules, be it space planes. Now, yes, Sierra Space, Rocket Lab, and Varda Space are already accelerating and set to launch in the upcoming years. But as I said, there remains the advantage of utilizing this ecosystem to put ourselves way first in the world. That is the acceleration, or that is the pedestal we are looking at.
Ankit, I'd love for you to weigh in, please.
Yeah. So, I mean, Varda is going after different problem. I mean, they are mostly starting with a drop mechanism more, right? And they are more focused on creating that entire end-to-end infrastructure to create that microgravity experiments, right? So this is definitely, and Varda is a great company. They have already demonstrated something out there, right? The key differentiator of Andura, right? Let's say not only India, any other company, which is Sierra or Andura, I will compare, which is like a more one-to-one comparison. We're basically trying the low G entry eventually, right? So because that's a different domain to unlock after you finish the drop one, there are certain amount of things you can do through that, but then you need, and eventually not only that, if you talk about long-term space travel from human as well, do you want to be dropped all the time? You're talking about we'll be probably having a space. I mean, of course, more frontier research, people going up there, even for tourism. Like every time you want a big show of the drones flying around and capturing your big show of one person coming in. It happens now because it happens once in a couple of years.
It's wonderfully theatrical, though, to be honest.
Yeah, it's very theatrical and it's fun, right? So we all watch that, right? This is fun. But ideally, it should be as smooth as
I agree.
Go up, go down. Because if we want to do it at scale, right? If the scale we are talking about wouldn't come from that. So basically, the low G entry plane kind of infrastructure is the most, let's say, logical way to get there. Sierra is the one who are basically trying to get in that direction, and of course Andura is trying in that this as well. Of course, Sierra way more heavily funded and supported by different institutions. Right now, there are two aspects to it when it comes to space. When we need to look into when it comes to space, so we need to look into that. First is that, of course, the cost advantage we mentioned, which I agree, but also disagree at a time, because I personally believe that India is cheaper, but it's not as cheaper as we think normally when it comes to deep tech, right? Because see, the cost of deep tech goes in multiple things, like the components, the infrastructure, the talent, this and that, blah, blah, right? Now, only talent part is cheaper. Everything else you have to source globally. Sometimes it's more expensive in India than other places, because you have to pay even import duty, and then the lead times are longer. The cost of time is
very valid point.
Talent is slightly cheaper. But also talent at some point start to saturate, right? Currently it's cheaper because there are not so many options out there. But if you look engineers in Bangalore are starting to charge in software industry pretty much already, right? Which is the global salary competition, which is nothing wrong. The country needs to
No, it's a
move in
good
that
thing.
direction. It's a good thing for the country,
Yeah.
but so we cannot rely on that thesis forever that, because we have a
Sure.
cheaper talent. Especially in space is not that industry. So we have to look differently in that direction. There is, when it comes to space or defense, anything, there is also a geopolitical advantage any other country can offer.
Yes.
Right? That's one another part you have to offer. Because Sierra eventually remains a US company,
Right.
and completely funded by US, which, I mean, which is not a problem at all. I mean, we are also pretty much heavily invested in US, and we have a strong US presence in the fund. But the point is that if we are looking for that alternatives in that direction, right? That's something one can offer. But that's not only the case. Timeline is again one that we can do it faster also, because Sierra started in a time when things were not as developed as today.
Yeah.
The entire space ecosystem in past 5 years have done so much of improvement. And unfortunately or fortunately for hardware, once you make design choices, I built a hardware company actually in medical. So that once you make your design choices, it's very hard to change that. Correct. Because you build an entire company, your infrastructure, your talent around that design choice that you want to go after, right? And after that, pivoting becomes very difficult. So somebody coming a bit later has an advantage to learn from those that, okay, what worked, what didn't work, and we can try a new design philosophy. And that's one of the reasons, of course, Andura should not take as long as what basically Sierra took, right? Or is taking now. So that's a good part. But again, whenever and I'm sorry for that, but normally as an investor perspective, I'll say whenever a founder comes and says, okay, we're going to do it in 2 years, I was like, okay, count 4, right? So our internally, especially as a deep tech investor, we always double everything what founder says. For us, of course, founder, we keep it that, okay, fine. I mean, I think I gave that secret out there, but to founders, we're like, okay, sure, you should try that. But we are also mentally happy if it takes twice longer, if it takes twice more cost, is still okay. If it takes 10x longer and 10x more cost, then of course we can't afford it.
Fair enough.
But if it, so we are aware that these are difficult domain, it takes longer, and things can go wrong, right? So there is nothing to be too picky about that. Hey, you promised this quarter launch, and the launch is coming next quarter.
Correct. Makes sense. And that's the kind of approach, to be honest, Ankit, that one needs to definitely have. I mean, you know what? It's been definitely an educational conversation, very knowledgeable one, aspirational, and I want to end on that. I want to end on the aspirational note. Now, this one comes to you very quickly. I would first go to Shri. Shri, I want you to give me, why did you pick it and what have you picked? All right. Now, this is one, which is AnduraX's stated applications include accelerating cancer cure research and producing purer semiconductor chips through in-space manufacturing.
Yes.
Pick one application, the one that keeps you going when the engineering gets hard. And what does the world look like if Aries works? Who goes first?
Among these two, pick one.
Yeah, let her go first.
Yep.
Because that's always we're just backing it from the back, right? Cheerleading.
So pick one among the two applications you've stated.
Yep.
So it would absolutely be the cancer research and the pharmaceutical advancement. That is what absolutely fascinates us. That is just the start, cancer research, what we're talking about, since it's being already done in space stations, so International Space Station, everything. That's only the start. I look at being able to print organs in space, 3D bioprinting, all of this as the future that we can achieve. And that is what Ares being operational makes possible. With re-entry not becoming the bottleneck anymore, with manufacturing platform becoming an easier access and cadence becoming higher, all these organizations will do more iteration. Iteration is the foundation to any research, having the right platform to iterate, having the right platform to fail and build upon it. Now that is what Ares gives. It gives the platform for all these pharmaceutical industries to do the experiments, iterate and develop faster. I see the future where we can actually print the organ required, bring it back to the humans, where we can actually accelerate the cancer research and the neurodegenerative disease research once Ares is operational, or for any space vehicle, yes.
Wonderful. Very quickly, Ankit, which one would you pick?
I mean, this is pretty much obvious. We, especially growing up in India, having not right healthcare access, right, all around. Not only cancer, I will generally say, if there is anything we can do in our lifetime, to make sure that everybody on the earth has an equal good access to the healthcare, affordable access to the healthcare in general, right? Solve as complicated problem as cancer, but also making the existing solution, which are already solved, but more accessible because they are too expensive to access, right? If these two directions, anything we can do, that's kind of done for the lifetime kind of a work, right? So definitely, and that can go, of course, cancer is one part of it, but it can go, I would rather use it making the entire pharmaceutical research, because the main cost of healthcare right in the R&D. And if you can shrink the time of R&D, then we can unlock a lot of possibilities, basically to be able to solve multiple problems. I mean, Sri mentioned the example of organ printing. We have already made an investment. That's a German company called Cellbrix, actually, which prints liver. But they are doing it at Earth. So we are waiting for Andura to, once they launch, then we're going to put them in the
Wonderful.
You know?
So wonderfully aspirational. Well, Ankit, Shri, you two have been absolute champions in terms of what you're doing. Ankit, you're doing some great work. And thank you for backing it up with a lot of faith and understanding. And the fact that we really wish that AnduraX can be, well, NASA's Atlantis or Endeavour. And I'm thinking it could beat them. And that's how I want to end it. You agree with me?
Yes, crossed.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with you. And it's been a real pleasure being here. And thanks a lot for having us.
No, it's been
really pleasure. Important. The kind of technology we're building goes more out into the world. More companies understand the kind of platforms that are coming up and start utilizing it. And more talent also comes up seeing that this is going to be the future. And this kind of platforms you're putting out gives us the way to put it out to the world what we are building. And thank you so much for that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, thank
you. Well,
you.
Ankit, thank you so much. And thanking the both of you. And well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. It is quite clear what they're doing is going to probably chase a change in a big way, the future course for all of humankind. So, well, let's genuinely wish AnduraX and the fact that Ankit Anand is backing it up with his companies. And I believe what they're doing is truly, truly commendable. Please do let us know. What are your thoughts in the comments below? This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.
AI prototypes are everywhere, but very few professionals know how to deploy AI where businesses actually operate. Introducing the Certified Forward Deployed AI Specialist by Adasi, a certification designed for the new generation of AI professionals who can bridge technology, deployment, operations, and business execution in real-world enterprise environments. Because modern AI success is no longer just building models. It's about making AI work inside production systems, customer workflows, and enterprise operations. The future belongs to engineers who can take AI from demo to deployment. This certification is ideal for AI engineers, solutions architect, technical consultants, Gen AI practitioners, developers who want to move beyond experimentation and deploy AI systems that create measurable business impact. The future of AI belongs to professionals who can take intelligence from concept to real-world execution.
There are a lot of models available on Amazon. You can use any model. For this particular workshop, I'll go with Llama 3. It's the simplest, easiest, and in terms of cost, no problem. But yes, if you are an organization, you want to go and work, you can use Anthropic's Claude model. You can use any of these models. So this is the 2ML file. And what you need, all of you, is you can see there is a Docker file also created. There is a Py project created. There is requirement, and this is the environment. So this is the app where you have a Py cache. So this is your cache. Init.py will not have anything, that is for initialization. This is your actual agent script. And then here you have got a README, which you can use automatically running in Docker, and these things come automatically.
You can click on data store. You can click on the tool name. So this is tool 1. It's a data store. You can give the description. Now I'm going with the lowest score in terms of grounding. So we have low confidence that the response is grounded.
Someone broke into a company last year and went straight for the backup. The one thing that was supposed to make everything else recoverable. 90% of ransomware victims in India faced exactly that. The attacker targeting the backup first. The safety net has become part of the attack surface. Now, AI agents are operating inside enterprise systems at machine speed, making decisions without human approval, accessing sensitive data without anyone watching. Veeam CEO put it across fairly simply, but I thought it made a huge mark. This was done in Veeam on 2026. And this is what he said, I quote, "The infrastructure to deploy AI exists. The infrastructure to trust it does not," end quote. So in India, Veeam has committed to skilling 100,000 professionals and creating 25,000 cybersecurity jobs under its Bharat Cyber Suraksha initiative. Sandeep Bhambure is the Vice President and MD for India and SARC at Veeam Software. And he is, of course, the gentleman who is responsible for making that commitment very real. He today is joining me for an exclusive conversation on Front Page. Welcome, Sandeep. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me here and very happy to join you, Sudhi.
We are very happy to have you with us on Front Page, to be honest, Sandeep. And this conversation seems to be extremely important because it's impacting so many lives in general. So I would love for you to start shedding light on what is going on and how are things looking as we move forward.
Yeah, certainly. So we are in the middle of the Veeam season. Veeam is our flagship event. You just quoted our CEO,
Yes.
Anand Iswaran. We all understand that the infrastructure for AI is fast outpacing that of the trust in the AI.
Correct.
Because that just doesn't exist.
Right.
And that is really slowing down the AI projects. So at Veeam, we are sharing with our customers all the innovations that that we have brought into the Veeam data platform.
Nice.
And post the acquisition of Security AI, we have introduced data and AI command platform so that we could help our customers accelerate safe AI at scale, which is the most important announcement that we have.
Oh, for sure.
And I'd love to share more with you about
Absolutely. I mean, this is so important and so pertinent given the times we are living in. Nearly 70%, I want to back this up with some numbers, Sandeep. 70% of Indian enterprises are hit by ransomware, which have been multiple attacks, multiple times in the last 12 months. Now, when the backup itself becomes the target, Sandeep, what does that tell us about how completely the threat model has kind of changed?
Yeah, backup has always been the last line of defense. And, the surest way of recovering your IT environment is to recover from a clean copy of backup. So Veeam is the world's #1 company in the space of cyber resilience.
Right.
And, of its 20 years of existence, we have seen how the landscape has changed. So, the first decade was around recovery because that time recovery was more of an assumption. You always would take backup, but then how quickly were you able to recover the data? And that's where we kind of introduced instant recovery for virtual environments, and then we extended the platform support to multiple different flavors of hypervisors as well as cloud workloads. The next decade was largely around ransomware protection. Okay, this was, I'm talking about the phase from 2017 onwards, and then post-COVID, when ransomware posed a huge threat to IT. And the surest way of recovering from ransomware was, of course, an immutable, copy of your critical data, which was stored at a place where, you could ensure guaranteed recovery. So, that was the second phase. But as we get into the third decade, which is largely around AI, and you pointed out, right, attacks are happening at machine speed.
Yes.
The biggest threat to AI initiatives are AI agents themselves. Okay, and then the definitions and the assumptions of the previous 2 decades of security and trust and recovery no longer apply to the AI era. That's because, all of these guardrails and security frameworks were built around a very simple assumptions that it is the humans who are basically posing the risk to your information. But now it is all about agents. So humans remain there as a threat, but agents are an even bigger threat, to your data. And that is where we believe that, data and AI trust becomes very important for unleashing the power of AI. And security and trust have to be looked at from a different lens. It is no longer about perimeter security, application security, network security, because we're not trying to safeguard data and attacks from humans. We are trying to safeguard against AI agents. And that's when we believe that data-centric security is extremely important. And that capability can only be delivered if organizations understand where their most critical data assets lies across the estate. And the contextual intelligence of each and every bit of data. And so it's important for us to also realize that compliance is becoming, again, a very important priority for organizations worldwide.
I agree. Which actually brings me to this, Sandeep. I mean, the statement which was made by the CEO, the infrastructure to deploy AI exists. I'll repeat it again. And the infrastructure to trust it doesn't. I mean, this was said by Mr. Anand Ishwaran, who is the CEO of Veeam. And to me, that stands out in a big way because, I mean, I want you to elaborate first on what does that actually mean? I mean, for us as a general audience, we want to understand that's a huge statement. It's a very significant statement and it's a very scary statement. So I want you to probably just elaborate a little bit in terms of what was he trying to say.
Yeah, so while the intent is not to scare really, but to get everyone cautious and understand the risk. Yeah, but it's very important, because when you look at the AI stack, okay, we have the compute and the GPU infrastructure that goes in huge amount of investment, billions of dollars. I was at the Bharat AI Impact Summit, and we're talking about as a nation over the next couple of years, AI could attract more than $200 billion of investment, right? So there is this bottom layer of infrastructure which will attract huge amount of investments. Okay, next comes the analytics layer. Okay, with different applications that are basically bringing out the intelligence from powered by the underlying infrastructure. And then you have the different AI models, you have the control plane, and then you have the vertical specific or use case specific AI agents. What is clearly evident from this AI stack is that an element or a layer is actually missing somewhere in this stack. And we believe that data and AI trust layer is something that organizations IT need to really think about, because that is the missing layer. So billions of dollars may go into all of these different layers to enable AI, but at the same time, we understand that 90% of the AI projects fail because the data lines that are feeding AI cannot be trusted. So whether the cause is because of hallucination or data, or toxic combinations of, writes, as well as, various other threats that exist for the data lines feeding an AI, it cannot be trusted. And also, let's not forget that, BI was all about structured data. When we talk about AI, it's all about unstructured data, and the data universe has has 90% of data which is unstructured. Suddenly that data is coming to life thanks to the AI algorithms and the LLMs, which are able to read all of this unstructured data, which was lying there in a very dormant state. Now, for us to maximize or unleash the power of AI, if the data and data cannot be trusted, it is simply not possible to do that or achieve that, or because we would end up taking actions based on hallucinated or toxic data. It is as simple as that. Very valid. This is what we as Veeam are introducing today. We have built the data and AI command platform, or the layer for trust today, as organizations want to unleash the power of AI.
Fair point.
So that's what Anand was alluding to.
No, fair point, Sandeep. I mean, but before I go on to the next aspect of things, I wanted to ask you, there's this constant conversation, right? In terms of, let's say, BFSI, in terms of banking, in terms of, the highly regulated sectors. Now, I remember we had done a story on the show on Front Page. This was about a couple of months back, where there was this entire conversation about death by POCs, right? The Indian IT is not being able to, let's say, go ahead and execute a lot of the solutions for these highly regulated sectors. I mean, they are. It's not that they are not, but not at the speed that they want to achieve, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that also has a lot to do with what you just mentioned? That there is a constant threat. Maybe that's why they're taking it easy. They're being a little more circumspect. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so most organizations that have embarked on their AI journey lack a governance structure around it. Then on top of that, we are also seeing compliance expectations from DPDP, which has been enacted. Of course, there are, for financial services, there are regulatory requirements by RBI or SEBI and organizations working outside of India, GDPR and so on and so forth. Varies from industry to industry. It is, and when AI comes in, again, there is going to be compliance. We are looking at a responsible AI, safe AI, ethical AI, and all of that. And this can only happen if there is a proper governance structure around it. The data that is feeding the AI can be trusted, so on and so forth. So, in order to enable this, organizations definitely need to understand the data, have a contextual intelligence, and there has to be a framework, which can be mapped to the frameworks of a DPDP compliance or RBI compliance or so on. And it is possible to achieve all of this if organizations can have a view of their data at a very granular level. Okay, and I'm sure you have heard this. Many organizations are claiming that they are they are giving a data command graph for companies to enable AI as well as to comply with the likes of DPDP and so on. So the question is how powerful is this data command graph?
Fair.
Does it look at every aspect of the data? Who is accessing the data? Whether the person accessing is authorized or not? Is there any PII data which is being accessed by unauthorized people? Are there any toxic combinations of data access? Is the data important from the standpoint of compliance? And so on and so forth. So if this contextual intelligence of your data estate is not provided by the data command graph, okay, that organizations are building, it is simply not possible to then have confidence or trust in any of these projects, whether it's AI or even protecting against the cyber threats.
You talked about the DPDP Act, Sandeep. I want to probably now come to that. India's Digital Personal Data Protection Act is, moving towards enforcement. Fair? Let's start there.
Yes.
Now, this is important because of what you just mentioned. Data localization is there, consent management and breach notifications are all live obligations. Fair?
Yes.
Now, the point I want to ask you, Sandeep, is this. How exposed are Indian enterprises to DPDP non-compliance right now? You mentioned that they need to kind of fall in line. But as per your experience, what is that kind of number to help us understand, contextualize it for us, please? And what does a company need to do in the next 6 months, let's say, that is not probably doing right now, and probably it has stumbled and it can kind of correct course?
Yeah, so the DPDP Act is a very compelling event for the entire industry. And it clearly should lead into actionables by the industry. However, I understand from my conversations with different CIOs, CEOs, as well as the GRC executives across enterprises, that their approach to compliance with DPDP is very fragmented.
Okay.
DPDP is a very holistic framework and expectation, where organizations have to not just look at a consent management, but they got to look at breach notification. They got to look at privacy. They had to look at the security as well as the fiduciary obligations or data principal rights and so on and so forth. Now, unless and until the entire DPDP guidelines are mapped to a framework that a data command graph or a tool, an IT tool that kind of maps this to their framework, it is not possible to really comply to DPDP in a holistic.
Okay.
So I have seen organizations just working on the consent management piece. Then someone is working on and to bring all of this into reality, organizations may end up engaging, interacting, and implementing with multiple vendors.
Right, fair.
Okay. Someone for consent management, another for breach notification, another for security and privacy, and so on and so forth. So it creates more complexity than before. So, and then you're still not getting a complete view of your data estate. So what we believe is important for organizations is to have security, compliance, governance, privacy and resilience, all talking to each other on a single platform.
Fair enough.
Right. So when you can achieve this, you can deliver on the expectations of DPDP compliance, okay, or any other compliance.
Fair
so
enough.
Mapping that, when we say there is a compliance element to this framework, it has to map to the DPDP framework.
True.
If there is a compliance for RBI requirements, then the compliance module has to map to RBI framework as well. So these are the requirements. When organizations have to look at for enterprise-wide compliance and governance platform, because you can't have one platform that is talking or complying only with DPDP, another with RBI, third one with SEBI, and so on and so forth.
I agree.
We need to create just one single common platform to comply with different frameworks. And by the way, we have mapped more than 100 plus frameworks to the compliance module, including DPDP, RBI, recommendations from the IT ministry, certain NIST, and so on and so forth. So having a robust framework that delivers compliance, security, governance, privacy, and resilience from one single platform becomes a very important strategic direction for any IT.
No, logically, I think what you just mentioned, Sandeep, it makes a hell of a lot of sense, because also I'm pretty sure a fragmented approach would be also delaying the work methods in an organization. Am I wrong? Am I right? I mean, those present all kinds of different challenges. And the platform that you're talking about, which is unified all of this, which Veeam is providing as a solution, is it the data AI command platform? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Absolutely. So you're bang on. So the data AI command platform is the platform that we launched in the Veeam, and it is available ready today to be deployed in production.
How long does it take to deploy?
Well, depending. Sorry.
How long does it take to deploy, Sandeep?
We would go through an assessment of the organization's readiness, as well as what is the current posture. Look at the gaps that are there between the best practices and where the organization stands in terms of data and AI trust readiness,
right?
And then bridge that gap. So depending on the amount of data that needs to be it come under this umbrella of compliance, as well as the size of the organization and complexity. It can go from weeks to perhaps maybe a month or so.
Fair enough. That's not too bad in terms of a timeline. Tell me this very quickly before I move on to the regulated industries aspect, which is very important. Do you not think that probably as far as the government's policy methodology is concerned, Sandeep, I mean, you talked about, and why I'm asking you this is, you mentioned billions of dollars as infrastructure investment, which is a huge point for me that you made. You've done it, but if there is a missing layer, do you not think then, the government should kind of wake up to that reality and say, okay, no, this is something which you have to do. There is no if and but.
Yeah, certainly. So, so far, we have observed that the data and trust and security has not kept pace with the investment in the compute and the infrastructure investment. So, we being the number one company in the space of data resilience, and then post the acquisition of Security AI, as we launched the data AI command platform, we believe that we are at the right place and time to basically educate the entire industry of the need for this.
But when you say this, I just wanted to add to something what you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Since the fact that you are market leaders as far as this is concerned,
yeah.
What is your conversation with the government body, Sandeep? I mean, it becomes all the more your responsibility to probably go up to the government and tell them about how important and pertinent this is. Have there been those conversations?
Yes, there have been those conversations. At the same time, it's not that the government is not aware or these bodies are not aware, because we work very closely with the policymakers as well. Data resilience is a very important initiative, and we also while we continue to drive huge momentum in this space of data resilience in India and worldwide as well. We have also launched an initiative, which actually is a 2-year-old initiative, which is called as Bharat Cyber Suraksha.
Nice.
And underneath where there is another initiative of Main Hu Saksham. So here, we are working closely with the government and policymakers. We have tied up with hundreds of colleges and universities across the country.
Wonderful.
And we have certain metrics here. So the country clearly sees a gap of about 300,000 skilled professionals that are required.
Wow.
Today, as compared to what the universities, colleges churn out. So, the requirement is for 500,000, still skilled professionals. What the colleges are able to deliver is only 200,000 plus, so there's a huge gap.
Yeah.
So, our endeavor is, we bridge that gap.
Nice.
So we are committed to, having skilling 100,000 plus professionals across the country by these tie-ups. Okay, to bridge that
Wonderful.
gap. We are committed to creating 25,000 plus job pathways, and we are setting up more than 100 plus center of excellences across these universities with whom we would have a memorandum of understanding. So which will basically not just help the students understand the conceptually understand cyber resiliency in the context of, I spoke about era 1 and era 2, but also look at cyber resilience in the context of the AI era.
Nice.
Okay, and to that, to enable that, we also introduced a textbook which draws from the best practices of the industry.
Nice.
And also from the stalwarts, the industry leaders, they are contributing to this book, and this will be part of the curriculum. So what
good.
students really get is a very kind of experiential exposure to cyber resilience in all the eras, including what they could expect even in terms of AI and trust in the current era.
Right? What's heartening to know is the fact that I mean, obviously, as a company, you're doing wonderfully well, but you're also going to the grassroots, Sandeep, which is nice. And the fact that the government is quite mindful of what you just spoke about, because I think this is a constant work in progress.
Yes, absolutely. And it's not a one-off activity. We started with Guwahati, and we know that that part of the country with the seven sisters is not all that privileged in terms of tech. All these campaigns and initiatives, but it was quite heartening. So when we met up with students, they're super excited, like young brilliant kids who have great knack for technology, as well as they're so excited. Some of them spoke to us about startups and ideas, and these are the students, and this is the generation that really needs the exposure. So I think we have a very good cause to contribute, back to the nation. There are so many threats again, not just for the country on the digital economy front, but also to enterprises and to individuals. So more the awareness we create, I think better we will be in a position, to be a resilient nation.
Wonderful to hear that, Sandeep, to be honest, that we are on the right path. Now, of course, something which is very important, as I had mentioned earlier, the regulated industries. Sovereignty is something which I believe cannot be, trifled with. And there is a significant amount of trust as far as that is concerned in terms of the conversations we are having. Regulated industries face data residency requirements that cloud-first architectures were not always designed to honor, Sandeep, right? Now, I want you to probably shed light on this. How are enterprises balancing cloud AI adoption, let's say, in terms of the speed, along with the legal requirement to keep certain data inside Indian borders?
Yeah, so data sovereignty has always been a point of discussion for years together, but it came into prominence, with some recent incidences where one of the largest, companies could not access their email data. And that's when sovereignty became, really a talking point, and so got to the top of the CIO's agenda there. So when it comes to AI and cloud adoption as well, there's no compromise on data sovereignty by any organization or enterprise and they do consider this as a very strategic imperative for them. Where Veeam comes in is we are 100% channel oriented organization.
Okay.
Right. So, we not just partner with the hyperscalers who work to enable data sovereignty for their customers, but we have tied up with Indian cloud service providers, Indian-born cloud service providers, as well as SaaS application providers, that are born in the cloud, where we help them protect their customers' data, keeping in mind the sovereignty requirements.
Fair.
There are banks today, who have a whole number of, a large number of email, users, but they don't want this data to be stored on cloud. So Veeam has a Veeam data platform as well as Veeam data cloud that enables customers to push this data on the cloud, and also if they require, bring this data up on-prem or onto another local cloud service provider. Right. So we believe that we are able to help customers to achieve data sovereignty in the way they want to look at this. Okay, so our partnership with Microsoft, AWS, and the sovereignty expectations from the hyperscalers can be met with Veeam. Customers' expectations from cloud service providers, the Indian-born local cloud service providers, can be met with Veeam, and we have a large number of partners with whom we are working.
Wonderful. All right, so which brings me to the next point, which I'd like to, of course, talk to you about, which is the rogue AI agent. You mentioned it very well, that this is the third era. So data AI governance enforces control at the data source, fair, which essentially means known and unknown agents, including rogue ones. Well, they cannot access sensitive data if governance is applied at the source, which is logical. Now, the question I want to ask you is this. A rogue AI agent, Sandeep, inside an enterprise, what does that actually look like when it goes terribly wrong?
Yeah, I think very important question. This is one of the biggest deterrent, Sudhi, for IT to unleash the power of AI.
Yeah.
I spoke about the data AI command platform. Basically what we are delivering for the customer is the ability to detect AI. Okay, because we as we look at enterprises today, there would be 82:1 ratio for autonomous identities to human identities in an enterprise. Wow. That's a big number.
Oh yes.
And the number of AI agents are growing at the rate of 44% over the previous year.
Wow.
So what we can kind of visualize is a huge challenge of autonomous identities that have their own rules of behavior, to the number of humans that are there in an enterprise, right? So organizations then will need the ability to detect AI when shadow agents are getting created today. Once the tech is accessible, every employee can create multiple agents if they like to. But then these are not, governed by the IT. So you need the ability to in the first place to detect this AI. The next capability that organizations need is protecting the AI.
Sure.
Okay, protecting in terms of, this is a boardroom discussion, and this is very strategic because, when so much of investment goes into AI and AI related use cases, the board is going to ask a very simple question as to what is your strategy, to recover an AI infrastructure if it gets attacked and attacked by
so.
Yeah. So that's a very important piece of the puzzle that every IT needs to answer. And then what is the underlying data resilience strategy for this entire infrastructure?
Fair.
Right. So this is the second piece of the entire capability. The third and the most important, which is what you're pointing to, the rogue agents.
Yes.
Right. So as much as it's not about if, it is when. As many guardrails as we put, to the AI infrastructure, eliminate the toxic combinations, look at reducing the threat or the security, and threat posture, for enterprise AI. At some point in time, their AI will go wrong.
Yeah.
There could be rogue agents. There could be toxic combinations. There could be hallucinations. What is your recovery mechanism in that case? So we deliver for our customers today the ability to undo the mistakes that AI can make.
Interesting.
With a surgical, precision. So you don't want to undo a day's work or week's work.
Fair enough.
To undo the mistake that AI has made.
Right.
you just want to at a very precise level undo just that part of the AI mistake, which was made. Now these are the capabilities, and we believe that this is a very important capability.
Oh,
this kind of
absolutely.
comes in from the underneath Veeam, Veeam's data resilience platform. So clubbed with the security AI, DSPM, and as well as AI SPM, so we are able to deliver these capabilities through the data AI command platform.
Wonderful.
Right. So the mistakes that a rogue agent can make, or the poison can be recovered or undone by Veeam. So this is a very important. That should give a lot of confidence, for the champions of AI when they are in the boardroom, and answer the questions there, the tough ones that are coming from the board.
I agree with you. Very quickly, before I move on to something which I feel what Veeam is doing is quite remarkable. But before I move on to that, that's a little surprise I have for you. But before I move on to that, I want to ask you, what are your thoughts on Mythos, and how do you feel it can be used positively? There is a lot of this negative thing about Mythos, that it's this thing which is going to pretty much break everything, etc., which it can. But what are your thoughts on that, Sandeep?
Well, I think it's a double-edged sword. We know that AI can do a lot of things for us, including, and at the same time we also see a risk associated with it. I don't think that Mythos is any different in terms of the capability that it brings for the people who are using it, or for the bad actors out there.
Correct.
The question is, how well are we prepared to leverage Mythos? And if there are any mistakes that are made, can we roll back, with precision? So capabilities and the speed of execution, or even speed of the attacks and the sophistication of attacks that we are going to see, whether they are kind of enabled by different tools and AI agents, are only going to go up. We just need to be ready in terms of having that the guardrails as well as the defense mechanism, not to be able to recover from the potential threats that we could see.
What was probably Veeam's standpoint when you were?
We follow the model context protocol that they have from the AI standpoint. So there are more discussions happening in terms of bringing in capabilities that could, not just, leverage the tools that Anthropic is delivering, or the agents that Anthropic is delivering, including Mythos, but also to leverage it in a way where we could deliver better value for our customers.
Wonderful.
From the data and AI security standpoint.
Yeah, because the reason I asked you that, Sandeep, is because I was thinking, this is my personal thought, I don't know if you agree with me or not, because I was like, okay, this is really powerful. There is, of course, this entire conversation about, our finance minister obviously called an urgent meeting, etc. All those things are going on across Europe, US, the banks there, etc. I just genuinely thought that, how about you actually use it for the betterment of humanity at large? That was my thought. Maybe that's why I asked you.
Yeah, certainly. So, like I said, it's a double-edged sword, and not just Mythos. I would say, any new agents and capabilities that we are introducing, it could be, leveraged by the bad actors. And unfortunately, they are the first one to leverage that, before even business thinks about, using them. We believe that, we can leverage these capabilities ourselves to kind of deliver better outcomes from the Veeam data platform. So, a year back, we were a company helping customers with data resilience. After the acquisition of Security AI, because that's when we believed that, there was a gap from the data and AI layer in that entire AI stack. We acquired Security AI, and now we are bringing in the DSPM and AI SPM capabilities as part of the Veeam data platform. And we will be in lookout of new partnerships going forward, as
Which is nice.
As the AI wave kind of really catches.
Fabulous. Which brings me to this. which was the fact that Veeam has introduced support for post-quantum cryptography. So well done on that. And hybrid FIPS, which is to ensure long-term data integrity against quantum computational threats. So
Yes.
honestly, fabulous, Sandeep, that Veeam has done this. Hearty congratulations from Front Page. We, of course, have very recently been covering quantum quite extensively. Now, how seriously, that's the question now I want to ask you. How seriously should Indian enterprises be thinking about post-quantum data protection right now? And is anyone honestly actually acting on it?
Yeah, so this definitely has caught a lot of attention by the Indian corporate, and the question is definitely bothering organizations at large. But I have not seen like much action. The question for enterprises is that the platform that they need to enable data and AI trust for their AI initiatives, whether it is ready, whether it is scalable to deal with the threats that are coming up from quantum cryptography, so on. So Veeam has announced support for this, and that's quite welcome, and thank you for your comments here.
Yep.
So we believe that the readiness for these threats is something that organizations are looking at from their AI trust platform.
Okay.
As long as we can scale to take care, because it's not going to stop here. There could be newer threats that we could expect at a speed which is unimagined before, and for which we just don't need the underlying hardware and the compute infra, but we need very clear software capabilities that will help organizations protect against this threat.
Because let's be honest, Sandeep, I think it's timely that this has been addressed, because there was this entire discussion about how India can be a quantum a leader in terms of that race, and we as a government, as a country, have actually squeezed that timeline. Post that comment, if you remember, Mr. Ajay Singh made that comment regarding the fact that India is vulnerable, and anyone sitting outside can make a quantum threat as far as the country goes. So I think, yes. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so the threat is kind of very much I would say it's recognized by everyone, including the government, and that's where that's where largely the comment is coming from. But to your question on whether we have started acting on it already, answer is no. There have been discussions by the industry, by the government, on how are we making our infrastructure ready for these threats in which could be today, not tomorrow. So
yeah, I know what you mean.
And these discussions are on. I have not seen too many organizations that have acted on this, or this could be very, very few, if at all. But the discussions definitely keep happening with the enterprises, and every other discussion with the largest of the financial institutions or with the manufacturing.
Need to push for it, no, Sandeep?
Yeah.
Need to push for this, right? This needs to be pushed, I feel.
Yes. So this will be in the charter for us. It's still new. I think a lot of bandwidth currently is being taken by the AI initiatives themselves, because the biggest challenge today for the CEOs as well as CTOs alike is the AI projects themselves are in a pretty much a pilot phase. And while 94-95% of organizations are either implementing or looking at implementing AI, only a small fragment of or fraction of that percentage, maybe about 15% of them, think that they have an infrastructure which is ready for rolling out AI.
Right.
So from the priority standpoint, getting AI into production is a very important task. As the second one is, of course, cyber resiliency and the threats that are emerging from quantum cryptography and so on. And the third one is the compliance burden. So we are going to see increasing discussions around the threats from quantum, and from the awareness standpoint, this is a charter that we will see driving in the near future.
Just so important. I mean, the fact that you guys
Yeah, absolutely,
at
absolutely.
Veeam are doing this on a timely basis, I think it's very important. The aspect of spreading that knowledge is
yeah, absolutely. And we want to be early in this conversation with the customers.
Fair enough. As far as the India and SAARC aspect is concerned, I want to understand this now, Sandeep, and in conclusion and looking forward as the road ahead is concerned. India is simultaneously right now one of the world's fastest growing AI markets, and to be honest, also the most frequently targeted countries for ransomware attacks. Now, I want to understand this from you. Where does Veeam India and SAARC strategy go from here? And what does the next phase of this market look like to you?
Yeah, certainly, Sudhi. So, India is a very strategic region within the Veeam's larger scheme of things. From the India business standpoint, we are perhaps the largest, company in terms of investment and the number of people we have supporting our client base here, which is going into thousands of customers across the industry.
Right.
We are developing, to support the Bharat Cyber Suraksha campaign as well as Main Hoon Saksham. We are developing our products. We are making our products out of India, in Bangalore, in Pune, in Hyderabad, and across multiple locations. So, like I said, over the next few years, we see a huge increase in the investments, that we are going to see from Veeam, not just from the standpoint of increasing our presence in the Indian market, but also in terms of working very closely with the policymakers, the government, as well as the university, college, the educational, and and other institutions, so that we are able to create that awareness around cyber resiliency and safe AI, data and AI trust. Next few years I see a lot of promise.
Fabulous.
Every conversation that we are having with customers, enterprise, particularly from the data and AI trust standpoint, it has been quite encouraging. Because there are two simultaneous discussions or compelling events that are driving these conversations. One is the data and AI trust, and the second is compliance, which is a very important, but I would say still a strategic priority for organizations. And the data lines that are feeding an AI are the same that are also feeding DPDP or a compliance framework, right? So you clean data, trustable data is a very important foundation, to drive these initiatives. That is a huge tailwind for us.
Wonderful.
So while so India remains the fastest growing region for Veeam worldwide, and considering the importance of cyber resilience now, the importance that DPDP and compliance is getting with the Indian leadership, and the investments going in AI, I think Veeam is in a unique position to really ride this wave and help our customers in a big way.
It's wonderful to know. Well, Sandeep, it has been a true pleasure having you with us on Front Page, and honestly, big congratulations in terms of the kind of work that you're doing. And I think the far-sightedness, the vision, the ability to kind of maybe preempt something is probably what lies at the heart of what Veeam is doing. Because I think that is probably what is needed for a company like Veeam to preempt a threat and to envision what can be done with it way before anybody probably gets that rogue idea. So fabulously done, and continue the great work. And I think what's also being done by Veeam is the education aspect at the grassroots, which I think is so important. Thank you so much for joining us, for all your insights, for all the knowledge that you've shared with us, and wishing you and everyone at Veeam onwards and upwards.
Thank you very much, Sudhi.
Fabulous. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Veeam is doing some really good work. I believe, yes, we are in the right direction as far as waking up to some very severe threats, understanding them, having cyber resilience, and most importantly, also understanding and embracing the idea of quantum cryptography, which Veeam is doing, which is fabulous. But more importantly, it's the sovereignty aspect. It's about the fact that Veeam considers India as the fastest growing market and is doing a lot to, well, keep pace with that speed and resilience. Well, please do let us know what are your thoughts in the comments below. This, ladies and gentlemen, is Front Page by the AIM Network. Like, share, subscribe, and always remember, think AI, think AIM.